What if I told you that everything you thought you knew about history's most famous artifacts was carefully constructed fiction? That behind the polished museum displays and academic explanations lies a web of deliberate deception spanning centuries. Tonight, we peel back the layers of manufactured truth to reveal the hidden origins of objects that have shaped our understanding of the past. Objects that weren't discovered by accident, but were placed precisely where they needed to be found, when they needed to be found, by people who understood the power of controlling historical narrative. Let's begin with something everyone recognizes. That famous stone tablet covered in ancient scripts, supposedly the key to unlocking an entire civilization's language. The official story tells us it was found by chance during construction work, a miraculous discovery that revolutionized our understanding of ancient writing systems. But dig deeper into the records, and you'll find something disturbing. The construction project that allegedly uncovered it was funded by a secretive organization with connections to powerful banking families. The same families who, coincidentally, owned the shipping companies that transported archaeological findings across continents. More intriguing still, examine the geological composition of that stone. Independent analysis reveals mineral signatures that don't match the quarries in the region where it was supposedly found. The stone originated from a location over 1,000 miles away, in an area that was completely inaccessible to ancient civilizations using the technology we're told they possessed. Yet somehow this massive tablet made its way to the discovery site and remained perfectly preserved for thousands of years. The academic who first translated the inscriptions had an interesting background. Before becoming a respected scholar, he spent 15 years working for a government intelligence agency, specializing in psychological operations and propaganda development. His expertise wasn't in ancient languages but in crafting believable narratives that could influence public opinion. After his archaeological career began, he received funding from sources that remain classified to this day. But that's just the beginning. Consider the curious case of that golden funeral mask, the symbol of an ancient dynasty's power. The mask that supposedly revealed the face of a legendary ruler and proved the existence of a lost civilization. The story of its discovery reads like adventure fiction, complete with secret chambers, hidden passages, and treasure hunters working by torchlight. Too convenient, too perfect, too much like a carefully staged theatrical production. Examine the metallurgical analysis of that mask and you'll find something remarkable. The gold contains trace elements that weren't naturally occurring in the region's geology until industrial mining operations began in the 1800s. The same industrial operations funded by the same network of financial interests that controlled the archaeological expeditions. The mask's craftsmanship shows tool marks consistent with 19th century manufacturing techniques, not ancient metalworking methods. The archaeologist who claimed to have discovered it had deep connections to intelligence networks spanning multiple continents. His expeditions were financed through a complex web of shell companies and private foundations, all ultimately controlled by the same group of families who have maintained influence over historical institutions for generations. These weren't scientists seeking truth, but operatives implementing a long-term strategy to reshape public understanding of human history. Why would anyone go to such elaborate lengths to create false artifacts? The answer lies in understanding how control over historical narrative translates into control over present-day beliefs and behaviors. When people believe their ancestors were primitive, they're more likely to accept that rapid technological advancement requires centralized authority and expert guidance. When they believe ancient civilizations were isolated and limited, they're less likely to question why certain technologies and knowledge systems seem to have been suppressed or forgotten. The pattern becomes clear when you examine multiple discoveries. That crystal skull, allegedly carved by pre-Columbian artisans using techniques that modern science can barely replicate. The official story claims it demonstrates the advanced capabilities of indigenous civilizations. But the skull's crystal structure shows machine tooling marks from equipment that wasn't invented until the late industrial age. The discovery site was purchased by a private foundation 3 years before the skull was allegedly found there. The foundation's board members included individuals with documented connections to intelligence agencies and psychological research programs. The skull's supposed mystical properties, its ability to generate unusual electromagnetic fields and acoustic phenomena, were not the result of ancient wisdom, but of modern technology embedded within its structure. Microscopic analysis reveals synthetic materials integrated into the crystal matrix, materials that weren't developed until the mid-20th century. The skull wasn't a relic of the past, but a sophisticated device designed to generate specific psychological responses in observers. These responses weren't accidental. The device was engineered based on decades of research into how certain frequencies and electromagnetic patterns affect human consciousness and decision-making. The same research that was being conducted in classified government programs focused on population influence and behavior modification. The skull was placed in the historical narrative as a test case, a way to measure how effectively manufactured mysteries could capture public imagination and direct attention away from more pressing questions. The web of deception extends to maritime discoveries as well. That famous ancient shipwreck discovered in seemingly impossible depths, containing artifacts that revolutionized our understanding of ancient trade routes and maritime technology. The wreck site was first identified not by marine archaeologists, but by sonar operators working for a private military contractor. The same contractor that provided underwater recovery services for intelligence agencies conducting classified oceanic operations. The ship's construction shows evidence of materials and techniques that weren't available to the civilization that allegedly built it. Carbon dating of the wooden components reveals inconsistencies that suggest the vessel was constructed using aged timber from multiple sources, a technique designed to create false dating results. The metal components contain alloy compositions that weren't developed until industrial smelting processes became available in the modern era. Most tellingly, the artifacts recovered from the wreck show signs of artificial aging using chemical processes that leave distinctive molecular signatures. These signatures match those found in items known to have been artificially aged by specialists working for intelligence agencies during the Cold War. The same specialists who developed techniques for creating convincing archaeological hoaxes as part of psychological warfare programs. The pattern extends to terrestrial discoveries as well. That megalithic stone circle supposedly built by ancient peoples using primitive tools and astronomical knowledge passed down through oral tradition. The site was first documented by a surveyor working for a mining company with extensive government contracts. The company's geological surveys of the area were classified for national security reasons, despite the site's apparent lack of strategic resources. Analysis of the stone circle reveals construction techniques that require equipment and knowledge that the supposed builders couldn't have possessed. The stones were cut with precision tools that leave marks consistent with modern diamond-tipped equipment. The astronomical alignments, while impressive, were calculated using mathematical principles that weren't developed until centuries after the alleged construction date. More disturbing still, ground-penetrating radar reveals artificial chambers beneath the stone circle, chambers that contain modern materials and electronic equipment. The equipment generates electromagnetic fields that affect the neurological activity of visitors, creating experiences that feel mystical or transcendent but are actually the result of targeted electromagnetic manipulation. The site isn't ancient, but a sophisticated installation designed to generate specific psychological responses while maintaining the appearance of historical authenticity. These discoveries weren't isolated incidents but part of a coordinated program spanning decades. The program's goal wasn't to advance archaeological knowledge but to create a controlled version of history that supports specific political and economic objectives. By controlling which artifacts are discovered, when they're discovered, and how they're interpreted, the controllers of this program shape public understanding of human capabilities, technological development, and social organization. The implications are staggering. If the artifacts that form the foundation of our historical understanding are manufactured, then the entire narrative of human development and achievement may be fiction. The timeline of technological advancement, the supposed isolation of ancient civilizations, the belief that rapid progress requires centralized control, all of these assumptions rest on evidence that appears to have been deliberately fabricated. But why create such an elaborate deception? The answer lies in understanding how historical narrative influences contemporary behavior. People who believe their ancestors were primitive are more likely to accept that they need expert guidance and institutional control. People who believe ancient civilizations were isolated and limited are less likely to question why certain technologies and knowledge systems seem to have been suppressed or forgotten. The program's success depends on maintaining the illusion that these discoveries were made by independent researchers following scientific methods. But examination of the funding sources, the career backgrounds of the key researchers, and the technical analysis of the artifacts themselves reveals a different story. These weren't accidental discoveries, but carefully orchestrated productions designed to create specific beliefs about human history and capability. The truth is that authentic archaeological evidence tells a very different story. A story of advanced ancient civilizations with sophisticated technology and global communication networks. A story of knowledge systems that were deliberately suppressed and replaced with manufactured narratives, designed to make people believe they were incapable of achieving great things without institutional guidance. The manufactured artifacts aren't just historical curiosities, they're tools of psychological manipulation designed to maintain control over how people understand their own potential. By making people believe their ancestors were primitive, the controllers ensure that modern populations will accept limitations on their own capabilities and freedoms. But the deception is beginning to unravel. Independent researchers using advanced analytical techniques are exposing the artificial nature of these supposedly ancient artifacts. The network of connections between the discoverers, the funding sources, and the intelligence agencies is becoming impossible to hide. The truth about humanity's real history, and the sophisticated civilizations that were deliberately erased from the record, is finally coming to light. The question now is whether people will accept this truth, or continue to believe in the comfortable fiction that has been constructed around them. The manufactured artifacts in the museums may look authentic, but they represent something far more sinister than simple historical curiosities. They represent a systematic attempt to control human consciousness by controlling the story of human history. The real artifacts, the ones that reveal humanity's true capabilities and achievements, remain hidden in private collections and classified storage facilities. But their secrets are beginning to emerge, and with them, the truth about who we really are and what we're truly capable of achieving. The manufactured history is crumbling, and the authentic story of human civilization is finally ready to be told.